In today's video I'm going to think about my previous birth with my first child Samuel and how that impacts my thoughts about birth this time round. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is my week 10 pregnancy update and I'm going to have a little bit of a different kind of chat this time because there's not a lot that's gone on differently this week. So I'm 11 weeks and I'm going to look back on my 10 weeks of pregnancy. Basically for me everything is pretty much the same. The measurement around my stomach is the same. I'm still getting sickness, although that's starting to ease just a little bit, and I'm starting to get just a little bit of my energy back. But I'm still kind of the same as last few weeks have been as well. And that is all I can really say about me. Nothing massive has happened this week, which is good. Nothing like massively concerning or massively amazing either. I've not had a scan this week. So yeah, that's literally all I have to say about me. Talking about the baby is now getting so much bigger. Apparently all its vital organs are now fully formed. The placenta is starting to function and they've got little tiny fingernails, which is really, really cute to think about, isn't it? And yeah, as far as I know, baby is doing fine. And yeah, so exciting to think about all the little changes happening in the little baby just now. But that's all I really wanted to say about that. My update isn't too exciting, so I thought, what else can I talk about in this video to make it a little bit more interesting? And I thought what I would do is just think about my first son's birth. So I've got a son right now who's called Samuel. He's almost 2, and obviously I gave birth to him. So I thought I would just talk a bit about that and how that has affected my thinking about my birth this time round, and yeah, kind of my plans around that. Obviously it's quite early to think about birth, but I feel like as soon as you are pregnant, you're almost already thinking about the birth. So I don't think it is really too early, but I just wanted to have a little chat about that. Samuel was born at 40+1. I went into labour the day before his due date and I gave birth the day after his due date. So it was a very long labour, what felt like long to me labour anyway. And that was the thing that marked it out most when looking back in my mind, that the labour part seemed to go on for a long, long time. And it was a smoothish labour. I gave birth in a hospital where I stay, in an NHS hospital, so we don't pay for it, it's free. So I'm very privileged to be living in the UK for that reason. And I gave birth, I laboured kind of normally towards the start, and then towards the end for the last kind of few hours or so, maybe the last 12 hours, maybe quite a long time actually, I was in the bath, not the bath, in the massive like hot tub situation that they have in the hospital to kind of help with the pain and stuff. Honestly, I don't think that it really helped with the pain a whole lot, but it was quite nice still to be in the water. And I was going to give birth in the water, which I hadn't really particularly planned, but that's kind of how it panned out. But then in the end I didn't, because I was pushing for a long time. I was pushing for around 4 hours, I want to say. And yeah, kind of towards the end they were like, I was just so exhausted and beyond. I was barely had the energy to push. I was literally asleep between contractions. I was so tired. So I basically had to have an episiotomy because of that, which is where they cut you to allow the baby to come out. Because I was pushing and pushing, and its head was right, and Samuel's head was right there. And I was pushing it out and it was going back in, and it was very, very frustrating. So in the end I had an episiotomy, which was a blessing because it meant Samuel could arrive finally. And I do remember the moment of him arriving being filled with two emotions. These two main emotions was exhaustion, absolute mind-blowing exhaustion because I've been awake for so long and say pain for so long, and also massive relief because of course things can go wrong in labour and you're just relieved that the pain is over and you're relieved your baby's there happy. So that's what I felt. I felt exhausted and I felt relief, and those were the two main emotions, to be honest, with when I gave birth. The kind of emotions about my son and everything and like how much I loved him kind of came a little bit later after I was able to have a big sleep, which I did manage to have actually. I was so happy. The best sleep of my life happened straight after my labour, when we were just left in the labour room. Samuel went to sleep and I slept for like, me and Philip slept for like 6 hours in the labour room. It was amazing. So that was amazing. But if you want to hear my full birth story, I did make a video quite a while ago, maybe about a year ago or so. I'll link it here for you to check it out if you want to, and you can see my full birth story. But that's kind of how it went down. It was smoothish, long labour, exhausted, relieved, and Samuel was born very, very healthy, and I was very, very extremely happy about that, of course, because a lot of things can potentially go wrong in labour. The first time round, I did not worry about the actual giving birth almost at all. And I think I was quite, I don't know, because I'm such a worrier usually, and I'm so anxious usually, but I just wasn't worried at all about it really. I was a little bit concerned about the pain and how I would deal with it, but I knew that you could have pain relief, so if it got really bad, I could maybe have an epidural, so I wasn't overly concerned about the actual birth. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that there was nothing I could do about it, essentially. The baby is when the baby decides to come, the baby is coming, and you can't really do anything about it, so there's literally no point worrying about it beforehand. And that really helped prevent me worrying about it beforehand. And I think this time I'm going to be the same. I'm not worrying so much about the actual birth itself. The only thing I'm worried about a lot about to do with the actual birth itself this time is to do with the fact that we have coronavirus in the world, and something could happen which makes us go into lockdown, which means I could potentially give birth alone in the hospital, which at the moment is the thing that I really, really do not want, because with my first birth with my son, Philip was such a big support. Like, you really do need the support of your partner or someone there with you, I feel, because the hospital's a new place, it's a place you've not been before. The people care about you, the midwives care about you and look after you, but they don't care about you and look after you to the extent that your partner would. So that's my biggest concern, is that Philip might not be able to be with me, but again, there's no point worrying about it because it's not something I can change or something I can do about, anything I can do about it. So I'm just going to take that as it comes. But that's my biggest thing, and of course, apart from that, my biggest thing is just to make sure that the baby's healthy and happy and here. But the actual pain of the labour itself and how that's going to go down, because I have so little control over it, I feel like I'm quite good at just leaving that, putting that to the side, and not paying too much attention or concern to it really at all. I guess this time the giving birth and having a newborn is going to be a little bit easier because I have done it before, although babies are different. Every baby's different, so it's not that much of a preparation really. But I do know things like how to change a nappy this time round. The first time, actually, I remember when I gave birth. So I gave birth at like, what time must it have been? I gave birth in the morning, at 8:56 AM I think it was. I gave birth to Samuel, and then I tried to breastfeed him throughout the day, so because I remember thinking that was an important thing, of course, to breastfeed. So I was doing that throughout the day, and then it was, when was it? The middle of the night it was, at like some ridiculous hour of the night. I was trying to breastfeed him, and it never occurred to me, and he was really, really fussy, and it never occurred to me to look at his nappy. And then the lady on the midwife on the ward, or the nurse, whoever it was, came past and checked his nappy and was like, yeah, he needs a nappy change, like obviously. But it just never occurred to me to check his nappy, and I don't know why, because even back then I knew that babies need their nappies changing, but I was just so exhausted and so out of it and so like not thinking about it and just trying to get him to feed that it didn't even occur to me. So that poor little man had a really dirty nappy for quite a while before I even clocked to change it. So this time round I'm hoping to be a bit more on top of that kind of thing, but because babies are so different, there's very little you can actually do to prepare yourself for the next one. And I've got a little bit of a concern about Samuel. I've watched a lot of videos and seen a lot of people talk about their second child, and that their first child, their firstborn, really struggles with the second child coming into the mix. And of course you would expect that because they are used to just having your whole attention for their whole lives, whereas the second child will always have a sibling. The first child, Samuel, has not always had a sibling. So I do think he's going to struggle with that quite a bit, and I'm a little bit nervous about that. But I do know that when he gets older, that they'll be the best of buddies, and it'll be like really lovely. It'll just be like the first little bit, I think, it's going to be quite difficult, and I'm preparing myself mentally for that to be quite difficult. We are trying to prepare. We've got on books to do with like new baby coming home, and you can prepare them to an extent depending on their age. So Samuel's almost 2. So he doesn't really know what's happening, but at the same time I can still talk to him about it and explain to him in certain terms. But at the end of the day, we're going to bring a baby home and he's going to be like, what is this? It's a stig forever kind of thing. And it's going to be a bit of a struggle at first. The complete hardest thing I think is going to be is the fact that I have to split my time and I'm going to have no free time. So I've always had free time with Samuel. Ever since he was a newborn until now, I have had time where I can go and do other things. When he was a newborn, he slept quite a lot, so it's quite easy. Now he sleeps a bit, he has one nap a day, but then he sleeps all night. So I have a lot more time in that respect. Whereas with Samuel and the newborn, I doubt they're going to nap at the same time. And newborns are awake a lot, as you know, anyway, throughout the night. So I feel like I'm going to be absolutely shattered. So I'm going to, towards the time, closer to the time, I'm going to really try and prepare myself mentally for the exhaustion that's going to come, and just the whole focus on splitting my time and making sure they get what they need. Things like cleaning and stuff, they're going to go out of the window, I know for sure, but for a certain period of time I think that is absolutely fine, and it's inevitable with your second child. So those are kind of my initial thoughts around having baby number 2. It's a lot of just general things basically that everyone worries about, I would think. If this is your second child, I'd love to see what your main concerns are and what your main thinking is around it. I would love to hear about that. That's really interesting to me. And I think that's all I'm going to bring you up to date with today. So I'm going to chat about. I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.